biggest loss in NSW history. All of the investigation was shouldered by JSOC of the Red Wings operation. They had a track out in Kandahar at Camp Gecko, which was Mullah Omar's old compound. Osama bin Laden had built a cave for Mullah Omar. It was really freaky. The bone of Ahmed Shah, who was the guy they were going after during Red Wings, the selector popped on a mountain. We're going to roll over there. You want to clear hot on this guy? And I was like, yeah. So as soon as I got there, I went over to the compound. I mean, they just lost, like the biggest loss in NSW history. And a couple of my friends, Dave Williams, was on the helicopter behind the helicopter that got shot down. And there was just weight on that compound. And it was just heavy. And Kevin Pope was like one of my sea daddies at Team 8. He was a master chief at the time. Found Kevin and, like, just what happened. And you didn't see the effects of war, and I hadn't seen the effects of war until that moment. Like you saw it on guys' faces that were like, they looked older. Like guys that were young, happy, laughing dudes at the Naval Academy, like Dave, like he was visibly shaken, and it was like this is real. Like, and it was a really, I remember that very specifically. And I was, at the time, I'd just gotten over there, and we were running some of I was working the desk at the Omega desk, and we were putting together so the minute the helicopter crashed, the investigation went from Siege of Sodef, and it became a CSAR, and the authority went to JSOC. So at that moment, all of the investigation was shouldered by JSOC of the Red Wings operation. And they were in the middle of it. And since it was out by Asadabad, and I was working with some of the Omegas, which were the outstations, we were tasked with helping with the investigation. And so going through all the reports and just getting to, see the whiteboards were still drawn with, like, hey, timelines, and this went to here, and like trying to, piece this whole thing together. And being in the jock suck, man, it was like the plywood palace. And one of the master chiefs, Billy, he's like, we had a couple other team guys that I had been through buds with, and they're like, oh, you were prior enlisted? I'm like, yeah. They're like, you got any good quals? And I was like, I just went to JTAC school. And they're like, he's like, perfect. There's a helo leaving in 30 minutes for Kandahar. He hands me a wad of cash. He's like, take this down to Omega down there. Get out of here and don't come back. And I was like, roger that. And so, I got to, that deployment was fantastic, because I got to call in some airstrikes. I got to see the different outstations. I got to see how JSOC operated, which is completely different from how the regular teams were operating in country. And that was went down to, when I was in Kandahar, I was big into riding dirt bikes. I made dirt bikes down there, and they had a track out in Kandahar at Camp Gecko, which was Mullah Omar's old compound. And Mullah Omar had built a cave. Osama bin Laden had built a cave for Mullah Omar, and it was on the compound. And there was a statue at the front of Camp Gecko that had it was like his interpretation of what hell looked like. It was this crazy, like, it was really freaky. We'd go out on the dirt bikes and rip around the track. And we took him into bin Laden's cave and did donuts. And that was
I think we were there at the same time.
Yeah, probably. So that would be 2005.
Yeah, because we were
July and August. July, August into the beginning of mid-September 2005. That's when I was there.
Yeah. Weird.
Yeah. The 50-meter single shot. There was a plate at 50 meters. You go out in the morning, one shot from the holster, pistol, steel plate, and then the hike up behind Camp Gecko.
Yeah.
Little workout. Yeah, that was it. I came back, and since I was a new JTAC, I went and talked to the AC-130 crews, and they were going up to sight in sight in the 105s. And I said, hey, can I come along? And they were like, yeah, sure. I'm like, I would love to see from a JTAC perspective what you see. I know what it's like to talk to you, but like it'll help me picture what you're seeing. So I went up, and we were over the range. I was up in the cockpit, and the selector, the phone of Ahmed Shah, who was the guy they were going after during Red Wings, the selector popped on a mountain, and they spun us over there, and they said, "Hey man, we're gonna roll over there. You want to clear hot on this guy?" And I was like, "Fuck yeah!" Like it was a guy under a blanket making a phone call at the top of the mountain, and I don't think it was. I think there's no way it was Ahmed Shah, but it was a bad guy nonetheless. And so he's no longer on a blanket laying under a blanket on top of a mountain. He just picked up the wrong cell phone. Yeah, that was interesting to be in the plane, and we're just like, looking down. And
What was that experience like?
just seeing it from the pilot standpoint, seeing the FLIR and how everything, how the whole system worked, and being in the plane and watching the air crew, and sitting up in the cockpit and watching the pilots, the AC-130 pilots, like that platform that's the most amazing platform we have in, the spooky guys. I can't say enough about those guys because they fly low and slow, and they hang it out there, man. And the amount of firepower that they are able to bring to bear in a fraction of a second. I mean, because you said the TGB, the green beam, it looks like a lightsaber, and you just kind of on the ground, you just hey, rope, yeah, I'm Mark, here, call contact, and then they just start hammering, and their precision is unbelievable. So to see that from the sky, and to watch the crews and just kind of be present in there was a really amazing experience. But had the chance to, I'm not sure who we got, but we got somebody.
Nice.
But yeah, we came back from that rotation, and they immediately put me in. I had about a month, and they threw me in free fall school. And my wife, Heather, at the time, not my wife, she was my friend growing up, and we used to ski together. She actually knew my dad. I had this huge crush on her. I met her in the 6th grade, and I was like, oh my God, this girl's amazing. And she's a awesome skier, an awesome soccer player. She post-college, she went and played soccer at WVU, and she's beautiful. I just had this thing for her, and I wrote her some music. And I sent it out to her, and in the mail, on like a CD. You know what I mean? Like, hey, and I said, hey, you want to come out and go on a road trip? And she's like, sure. It's off season in Aspen. She was working as a snowboard instructor on Snowmass, and she coached the soccer team in Basalt, a high school soccer team. And so she came out for a road trip, and I ended up getting thrown into free fall school. And at the time I was living in Coronado, my sponsor parents from the academy, the McWaters, they had this awesome house, and they had a back alley apartment. And so they rented me this back alley apartment that was a single car garage converted into a living space. It had bunk beds. I'm 26 years old. I got bunk beds and a tiny little bathroom, and there's a dirt bike in there, and like a love sack. And it was like the crash pad for all the team guys. They get drunk at Danny's, and they'd be like, I'd come into my apartment, and I'd be like dudes I didn't even know, like crashing, because I'm like, hey, if you're drunk, don't drive home, just crash at my place. And so you'd wake up in the morning, and it was like littered with frogmen. Like dudes would be coming in the middle of the night, like, hey, can I stay here? I'm like, yeah, whatever. Dudes coming. I had this tiny little window, and and I had cinder blocks with like 2x8s that had like a little TV on that were on the windows. And I can't tell you how many times dude came through my window and wrecked my whole 2x8s. It would be all over the floor in the morning. And there's like some half-clothed frogman like laying on the floor. And I'd be like, hey dude, I'm heading in. Do you need a ride? Like, what team are you at? I'm T5. All right, let's go.
No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.